Hey friends, welcome back. Now, after we set up our data model, now it's time to dive deeper into calculations in Power BI. And there are various options how we can calculate something. There are calculate columns, there are measures, so a lot to explore. So let's get into it. So, our first calculation could be that we want to calculate our revenue or our sales. Why is that? Because if you take a closer look at the sales table currently, and of course we could also take a look at the data view, select the sales there, we can see that we have a quantity column in here and we have a price column in here. And by the way, I can see there are a lot of ones, but if you simply take a look at here, you see that there are also, for instance, 3 items purchased or 4 items purchased. So we can see there are various entries in here. So that means in order to calculate the revenue here, we need to multiply the quantity times the price. So for each row in the data set, we want to multiply how much has been sold and what was the price for this item in order to derive the revenue or the total sales, depending on how you want to call it. To do this, we can actually create a calculation inside the Power Query editor. So that means we can go to Home, and in here I'd like to go to Transform Data. So click this option here, and then the Power Query editor opens again, and there we can see all the columns we have. So our first calculation will be on the sales table, so we can select sales in here, and then we can create here a new column. And this can be done by simply going to Add Column here, so at the top in the ribbon bar, click on it, and then there's an option to create a custom column. That's what I would like to do now. So I can click on Custom Column. Here we go. And now I can see here, I have here my custom column, which currently specifies here no syntax errors have been detected, so that is fine. Of course, I don't have any formula in here right now, so I need to create something. So first, let's actually name this maybe, as I said, total sales. Okay, let's call it total sales, and because it's a column, let me just name it column for now. So that's our total sales column. And in order to now write our formula in here, unfortunately I can't zoom in here, but hopefully you can see it. Otherwise, please follow along that you know what we need to do here. So I can now I have actually 3 options in here, but what I could do is I could simply open the bracket, so the normal bracket like that, and then I have here IntelliSense, which now tells me all the columns I have, which I can refer to. For instance, I could use price, I can use quantity, and that's what I want, right? To select it, simply click on price, and now I've selected the price column. But the other option would be to simply, if I remove this for now, simply to go in here, available columns, you can scroll down, and if I select price from here, I can either click on insert, then it's also in here, or the third option would be that I simply double click. If I double click on price, then it's also inserted in here. And I can then multiply the price, simply use the star symbol here, and I want to multiply by the quantity, right? So I can double click on quantity, and then I also have my quantity inside. And that's actually my formula, because I need to multiply the price times the quantity for each row in my data set in order to calculate the sales. You can also see there are no syntax errors. If I would, for instance, remove one of the brackets here, so in this case, if I remove this one here, now you see token, in this case, the closing bracket here is expected. So it gives you an indication, and also the red quickly line here that something is wrong here or missing. In this case, we can just edit it by simply adding this closing bracket here, and now you can see that everything is fine. So maybe Power BI in the future decides that if everything's fine, that they don't show this red box, but maybe a green box. I think that would be more helpful, I think, visually, but right now it's like that. So let's stick to that. There are no syntax errors detected, so obviously the check here is the green one. And of course, now we can simply create this calculation, so this custom column in here, by simply clicking on OK. And then you see that now we have a new column here, which is this total sales column, and it shows here the value. So for instance, 4 times this 1,848 is this 7,392. And the same is true then for all the other values we have in here. For instance, here 1 times 127 is 127. Right? So beside this, you also see that there is actually currently the calculated column, but the data type has not been set, because it's ABC123. And always when you see this, this is an indication that we need to set up the data type. We need to specify it. So let's go in here, click on this option here, and then specify this should actually be, in this case, These are whole numbers in here, so I stick to whole number. Normally you could also go with decimal number, but for now let me go with whole number in here. Now I can see my total sales column like that. So now this has also been applied, and maybe you have already spotted it, maybe not, but one more time, all the steps we do here, also adding this calculate column, is here recorded in this applied step window. So we can clearly see that the source was without the column here. There is after the price column, this is the last column. Then we added the custom column. So now we have a new column in here. And then you can see there the data type has not been changed. And then under change type, then also the data type changes. So all the steps, the individual steps are recorded in here. And now we have our total sales column in here. And this can be used in the model itself. So we could now go under home, click on close and apply. And then we just wait here, and now data is loaded. And let's go. Here we can see actually our table, right? Total sales column. And if I go to the report view here, and then I want to use this here, I can simply click on it, take this option, and I can see here my bar chart. Or if I either suggest a type, I can see this as, in this case, a KPI. Or of course, I could also select the KPI card here directly to have it as KPI. And if I go to the formatting option here, we go here. Currently, I only can select the category label here or unselected. So let me go to more options. Then now also here, the formatting pane appears. And let's actually go to the callout value. And then let's maybe show some display numbers here and go here with none. And then I can see here the number like that. And of course, maybe I'd like to add here, this is again a formatting which you can define. So if I go to data view here and select my total sales column like that, if I do this, then you can see up here, new ribbon, or exactly new, this pop-up boxes appear. And under the table tool, or the column tools here, there's an option here to specify also the format. For instance, if I say these are US dollars, I can click here the dollar symbol, and then I would see this as a dollar number in here, like that. I can also add here, you can see that by default also the thousand separators have been added in here. Maybe for you this would be commas, and this is just a local setting for me, but you can clearly see that you can format here the number the way you want it. Next to that number here, this can also be used or sliced now by our, in this case, dimension tables. So remember, if I go back to my model view, we have a relation between the product and the sales. So now you can also see the total sales column appearing here. This means that because of this relation here, we can use now our product table data and filter the sales table. For instance, this total sales column here. So that means if I go back to our report in here, I could use now inside my, can go to my product table. I could now check, for instance, make sure that you deselect this one first. Click somewhere on the white canvas here. And then you simply select here from the product here. Let's do that. Let's use the product name. Tick the product name. And now we have here a list of the product names. We can make this bigger. Also maybe drag this maybe to the left here. These are the product names. And now we can simply add next to the product here, add data. And then from the data here, from the, in this case, sales table, we would like to use the total sales column, which we calculated just a minute ago, right? So tick this option. And you can clearly see that in total, we can see these 25 million and so on, which is the same number as here. And this is now broken down for each of the products we have. So you can see different numbers everywhere, right? And of course, you can also sort this. You can, for instance, here do sort and sort it here descending or ascending, right? Depending on what you want to do. Simply click on it and then the data is sorted. So this way, and this relation only works on filtering data, product here, and then the sales for each of the products. This only works because we have set up our model correctly. So if I go back to the model view, and for instance, I would say this relation here, if I right click and say I would like to delete it, like that, yes, delete it. So just to show you what that happens. So product and sales do not have a relationship anymore. Now if I go back to the report view, we can now see there are 25 million everywhere. So in this case, because we have no relation between the products table and the sales table anymore, now Power BI is not able to use data from the products table in order to filter the sales table. And because of that, it simply displays here the total sales number, this figure, the 25 million, for each of the products, which of course is completely wrong, but that's just how it is if the model is not set up correctly. And this is why I put so much emphasis that you need to get in your head that the model is really the most important thing in Power BI. So if the model and the relationships are set up correctly, you do not have this issue. But if you have an issue like that, and you can see repeating numbers in your Power BI report, this is an indication that you need to go inside your model view and make sure that the tables you're going to use and which you combine in your visualization have the correct relationship. So that means, and here we can clearly, easily fix this. So we just need to go here and need to say the product ID from here. Let's use it and drag it down to the product ID from the sales table, create the relationship. Now it is established, one-to-many. The product table filters the sales table, and therefore it filters the total sales column. And that means if I go back inside the report view here, we can now see that we got the correct numbers out here. So now we have that. Another thing you might have spotted, maybe not, but let me show it to you, is if I want to sort my data. For instance, we have here, easy product names, right? Just product 1, product 2, and so on. But of course, if I go here and try to sort my product name, I could see that I got product number 1, product number 10, product number 100, and so on. So obviously, the sorting here is not correct. So if I would like to sort this correctly, like product 1, product 2, and so on, product 3, right? This cannot be done directly here. What you could do is you can click on the 3 dots, and there are sorting options, like sort descending and sort ascending. And there's sort by. But the sort by is currently on product name. And of course, you could also do it on total sales column, which we have already done, by simply hovering over the column and click on the little black arrow here. But we cannot sort it like product 1, product 2, and so on. So the format here is different from, let's go back to the data view, for instance. And there you can clearly see if I select the product here, there it is sorted correctly, like product 1, product 2, product 3, and so on, right? So the question is, what can we do in order to get the same structure like here? Now for that, what Power BI needs is, it needs a sorting column. And our sorting column here is the product ID. So this column, this product ID column, helps us to sort the product name correctly. And that just means that I can select my product name here, and inside the column tools here, I can use sort by column, this option here, click on it, and then I choose I would like to sort the product name column on the product ID column. So this is my sorting column. So I select the product name, go up sort by columns, and choose here product ID. And as soon as I tick this option here, I can go back to my report in here, and now you see that the sorting is correct. Product 1, product 2, product 3, product 4, and so on. So if you have a use case and the default sorting options, like clicking on these arrows here or going under the 3 dots and choose sort by, if this is not working for you, then what you need a sorting column, which you either have to create if you don't have it, or like we in the model, we already had it, and then we just need to make sure that we select the column we want to sort, and then sort by column, and then choose the specific column we want to sort it by. So now there's another way to get the same result. And this is, instead of creating a calculate column like we have done here, we could also create a measure in Power BI. But before I'm going to show you how to do this, please make sure that you click the little disk icon if you have not done so far, just to make sure that you save your current state of the Power BI file. I already did it during the video break, but please do the same, just to make sure that your file is saved, okay? Especially if you want to maybe continue working on the next day, or as I said before, there might be a case that Power BI is just closing or crashing, and then please make sure that you save the file, okay? So, having said that, now let's explore how we can get the same result here, this 25 million, but using DAX calculations and specifically measures. Now, in the first video where we did a tour through the interface, there we also talked about the measure, and the Power BI measure, which in the first video was grayed out, of course, is not now available. Under Home, you can see there is an option to create a new measure, this one here. So we can write a DAX expression that calculates a value from our data, which is actually what we want to do, because we want to multiply the sales, right, or actually the price times the quantity in order to derive the sales. Please note that the new measure option is also available if you go to Insert, one more time. You can also find it in here, because there, in the modeling here, you can also find it up here, because there is the new measure option as well. And as a bonus, there's also a third option. If you right-click on one of the tables, for instance, if I right-click on my sales table here, there's also an option to create a new measure from here. So there are actually 3 ways to get the same result. But if, for instance, here I can click on new measure, and if I do that, then now here, as you can see here in the ribbon here in the bar, there's now an option to create a new measure itself. So let me do that. But maybe before I do this, let me actually press Escape here. Let me just select the blank canvas here somewhere, so I get rid of this little pop-up window. Now let me do it again. Let's right-click on sales, go to, in this case, new measure. Now, of course, you could also do it from the ribbon if you want, but now we have our measure in here. Now, if you need more space, simply click this drop down here, and then you have more space to write your measure. For the measure itself, what we would like to do is we would like to iterate through our sales table. What I mean by that is, in order to get the correct value, what we need to do is we need to go through each row of the sales table, so each transaction. For each transaction, we want to multiply the price of this transaction times the, in this case, amount which has been sold. And then at the end, we want to sum all these individual values up, right? This is how we derive the total sales. So to do this, let's actually first give our measure a name. So let's call this total sales. And then we say equal. And I will go to new line. You don't have to do it, but I will do it. If you want to do it, press Shift and Enter together, then you go to new line. And for the total sales, what I like to calculate is an iterator function. And here we're going to use the SUMX function. So SUMX, if I tap this now, this gives us here a little explanation what it does. So let me just get rid of that. In here, if I press Escape, then I can see what the SUMX here actually tells us. Here, it's what the SUMX function needs. It needs a table and then an expression. And here it returns the sum of an expression evaluated for each row in the table. I think this is a really good, actually, definition, because what we do here is the following. We say we want to sum up something in a table. And what we want to sum up is the expression. Now, the table we were going to use is, in our case, sales table. So we can type in sales as a first argument, sales. And if you type in an SA, you can also press tab then, in this case, and then you can actually get the sales directly, or you can write it if you want. Now, the next is the expression itself. Now, what do we want to do with our sales table? Well, the expression is simply what we did for the calculated column as well. In our first part, we want to actually use the quantity. And if I type in Q quantity, and here I can select from our sales table the quantity, this one here. And then we want to multiply this with a star, and then we're referring to the price. So if you type in price, you should find also here from the sales table the price column. So the indication is always the table name, and then in brackets the specific column. That tells us that this is actually from the sales table the price column. So that's the expression, and then all we need to do is simply close the parenthesis here, and that's it. So that's the formula. So what happens here is we tell the SUMX function it should go through the sales table. That's why the sales here as a table is the first argument. And by the way, this is true for all X functions. X functions are iterator functions, and this means we always need to give it as a first argument a table, because they iterate over a table, and iteration simply means they go row by row through this table. And what it should do row by row is simply multiply the quantity column times the price column, and at the end, because it is a SUMX function, it sums up all these individual results. So let's actually do that. Let's actually check this. Click on here, commit, so check it. And let's actually make this smaller. And now you can see a little calculator icon here, which is now our total sales. And now if we add this also on the canvas, so click somewhere on the blank screen, click on this total sales option here, and we get our bar. And if I switch this also to a card by either clicking on the card, or if I simply tick this option on here, then you can also see 26 million. And let me turn it off again. I just want to show it to you. And now also, if we go in here, go to the formatting option. In this case, I can't do it directly here, so I need to click on more options here. And then I go to my formatting pane here and specify here for the display units, also show it as none. And then I also select this one here, go back to my cylinder here and select the measure itself. And then for the measure, I can do the same as for the calculate column. I can go in here and say, I would like to see this as a dollar symbol. And now you can see that I got here a value. And if you take a closer look, you should see that this is exactly the same value, these two, right? So what I have here for my calculate column, the smaller, is the same value as I have here for my measure. And the difference is those measures always have this calculator icon in here. And this measure also works, by the way, if I go here inside my table here for the products. Of course, I can also select total sales here, click on it, and I can see exactly the same values, right? And also, by the way, if I would go, just if you think about that, if I go back to my model view and I would delete the relationship between the product and the sales again, then I would see the 25 million, not only for my calculate column, but also for the total sales. So this measure only works because our setup here relationship is correct, right? So the behavior would be exactly the same for the calculate column and for the measure we have. Now, you might ask me, of course, so hey Dan, why do we have these two options? So which option should I use, right? Could be a valid question, and it's a good question. Now, the point is the following. Whenever you can, you should, so that's best practice at least, and that's why I would recommend as well, you should use measures, like we have done here, not calculate columns, like this one. Why is that? Well, the most easy explanation is actually if you take a look at the data view here, for instance. You see that when you create a calculated column, as we have done with the first option here, then this column gets stored in the model as well. And if a calculated column, like this one, gets stored in the model, that takes up space. So it makes your model bigger. And normally what you want is you want to have the model as small as possible, because then it's the most efficient one, and also regarding the performance, the best one. For the measure, on the other hand, as you can see here, the total sales, the measure here, this is not stored anywhere. You can't see the measure in here. It's not part of the table. What a measure actually is just something like a definition, and this definition gets only applied as soon as it's used in one of the visuals. So that means the total sales itself here, the measure itself, that does not exist as a calculate column. It just gets calculated on the fly as soon as it's used. And you can think of it like that. The total sales here, this evaluation, like quantity times price, this is calculated for each row in the sales table. Then the value is summed up to deliver the result, as you can see here for individual products, or here as a total sum. But let's say the intermediate calculations, like quantity times sales for each of the specific rows in the table, this is not saved. This is just calculated, then the total sum is evaluated, and then all the intermediate steps are deleted. So that's why this measure is very, very effective, because it does not need any space in the model. And this is the reason why normally, whenever possible, you should use calculate measures instead of calculate columns. Now, having said that, you might ask yourself now, hey Dan, if the measure is the better option, why did you actually show us how to create calculate columns? And why is it actually possible to do that? Well, the reason for this is that sometimes you cannot use a measure. And one of those, reasons could be that you want to display something on the axis of a chart. So for instance, if you create a bar chart like that, if I go to create bar chart here, and I'm using my sales here, click this option, I would see it as a bar. So that's totally fine. But if I would like to have it as an axis here, to slice this, for instance, I would need to have some kind of calculate column or a default column. So for instance, if I go here on the dates, I could use here, for instance, the year. This is the year column. I can drag this on the x-axis here, drag and drop it here. And you can see that now I'm slicing my data by 2021, 2022 here, and of course 2023. And this slicing here, like putting something on the x-axis in this chart, for instance, in this case the year, this can be done with a default column in the model, or also if you would have calculated this here as a calculate column, this would also be possible to put it in here. For the measure, on the other hand, like total sales as a measure here, for instance, this cannot be placed here on the axis to slice the data. It can only be used here to show the bar, for instance. So that's why both of them exist, but you can see that, for instance, for the total sales, we could get the same result with both of these options. And whenever this is the case, whenever we want to use it as a bar or as showing as a number in here, then we should use measures, because they are more effective in this case, because they do not blow up the model, call it this way, because we do not need to save it and store additional information. Okay, so I just wanted to mention this, and that's the reason for that. So you have now clearly seen how to create calculate columns, how to create measures, and that's why I like to say congratulations. These are your first calculations in Power BI. So thanks a lot for watching, and as always, I can't wait to see you in the next video. Until then, best guys.